The following information presented is to the best of my knowledge and is made for entertainment purposes. All information provided is shown with intentions of being accurate and informative, but can still hold inaccuracies. Under no circumstances shall I have any liability for any loss or damage as a result of the use of this video. Use the information given in this video at your own risk. Alright, enjoy the video. This is you. You're Earl Grey. You live in 19th century Europe, and you're quite the nobleman. One day, you're enjoying a walk in the peasant-free garden, when all of a sudden, you spot not you. Baron Bold, to be exact. He's quite the bully and has ridiculed you on multiple occasions. And today was no exception. I mean, how dare he insult your facial features? You were born that way, you can't help it. Not tolerating his mockery, you quickly throw the best insult in your book. And, uh-oh, he didn't like that at all. In fact, he's super offended. Offended enough to warrant a duel against you. But it's the 19th century. That challenge has no credibility, right? Dang it, you're not prepared for this. But no worries, I'm here to help. Me, the imaginary voice in your head. And you can trust me because after 2 weeks of researching this topic for a college presentation, I can confidently say that I can beat up an armed toddler. So let's give a not-so-quick rundown on how to survive a 19th century duel following the Code Duello. Those who lived under Victorian rock are probably wondering right now, what is a duel, and what is a Code Duello? Well, duels were formal fights conducted with guns and swords to settle grievances. These grievances were often caused by verbal insults or physical assault. It's the 1800s, so it was like a 50-50 on which grievance was done. And the Code Duello was a rule book made to regulate these duels, and they have two main variants, one being Irish and the other French. People treated these rules very seriously, and here's an image of what one of these rule books looked like. And right now you're probably wondering, why gee, all this duel stuff sounds pretty great, but there's no way it was actually common. Well, surprisingly, duels have been a large part of European and American culture for centuries. How else were people supposed to settle grievances? With productive dialogue? Anyways, did you know that Abraham Lincoln got into a duel once? It was a duel between him and Illinois State Auditor James Shields. But Shields and Lincoln both surrendered right before the fight, and after some exchanged apologies, they became good friends. Shields later became a Union general for Lincoln, and the only senator from 3 states. And Abraham Lincoln became a US president, I guess. Andrew Jackson, 7th US president for those who don't remember, was an avid duelist. I mean, does this look like the face of someone you should offend? He literally looks like he could be a character from The Godfather. I mean, not only does he have a cool nickname like Old Hickory, but he also survived an assassination attempt unscathed. He was estimated to have done around 100 duels in his life, and he only got shot twice. Also, he killed Charles Dickinson. Not the famous writer, just a horse breeder with the same name. Don't worry, Oliver Twist fans. Your favorite author died peacefully with a stroke at the age of 58. Now, back to the duel. Using high-tech simulation software, here's a quick sportscaster mock-up of how that duel went down. Kicking off the match, Dickinson shoots first and hits Jackson square in the chest. Ooh, only inches away from the heart. Looking at this frame here, we can also see 2 mistakes Dickinson has made. First mistake was entering the duel with Andrew Jackson of all people, and the second was trying to aim for the heart of a heartless person. Classic blunder. Looking at the French rules here, it seems like even though Jackson was wounded, he could take a shot at Dickinson if he wanted, and it looks like he's going to do it. Ooh, Jackson shoots Dickinson in the chest, landing a hit on his vitals. Looks like he's bleeding to death now. Good play by Jackson, good play. Although Andrew Jackson won the duel, the bullet Dickinson shot at his heart couldn't be removed, and the pain would haunt Jackson for the rest of his life. Just like the Trail of Tears. Some French people did it in hot air balloons once over a love dispute. The craziest part about this duel isn't that they did it in hot air balloons though, but it's the fact that the duel was done because the French Attorney General at the time was too inconvenient. That statement alone should tell you how 19th century France ran on a daily basis. And that's not including the whole guillotine bit. Anyways, the duel ends about as well as you would imagine. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, are you going to talk about the Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr duel next? No, because I'm one of the only 3 people in the galaxy that believe that Hamilton intended to cheat and kill Burr in the duel. But one musical later, everyone forgot about that small detail. I might do a bit on this some other time, I don't know. Alright, now that you got a brief history of duels, let's get back to knowing how to survive one. Remember? You know, the main topic of this presentation that I totally didn't tangent away from? As I said earlier, there were dozens of Code Duello rulebooks, but most were variations of the Irish and French versions. And no, before anyone asked, there was no official Wild West duel code. They only had one rule, which was shoot first and ask questions later. The US actually adopted most of their duel code from the French and Irish immigrants, somewhat because of cultural integration, but mostly because they hated the British. So, which Code Duello would you follow? And the answer is, it depends. The Irish version was actually the original one, and it had around 26 rules mainly for pistol duels. And the French version came later, but it had 84 rules covering all dueling weapons, including swords and sabers. So if you're using swords, you're going French. And if you're using guns, you're most likely going Irish. But which weapon should you be using if you're allergic to death? Now it should be obvious, but don't choose the death wand. Although pistols are the most romanticized duel weapon, they are also the deadliest. If you get shot, you are probably gonna die. You are not Andrew Jackson, choose something else. Assuming you are unskilled in swordsmanship, the best weapon to duel with would have to be the one-handed sword, more specifically, the saber. I know this is going to rustle some jimmies, so let me explain. Historically, one-handed swords have been the weapon of choice by many people because they're cheap, conventional, and user-friendly. Military History by Chris Sabazzo even says that because of how practical it was, the saber became the mainstay of the 19th century cavalry. Literally every relevant military superpower had sabers in their arsenal. Back to one-handed swords, however, why choose sabers over other one-handed swords such as the rapier or the small sword? And that's because of the blade's shape. While rapiers and the like were actually made for personal combat, their blades were straight, which means that what the weapon excels at is thrusts and stabs. You can see how that could become a problem, especially when you want to leave the fight alive. But sabers, because of their curve, have an easier time delivering cuts, large or small. Getting cut with any type of sword will cause some injury, but theoretically, the saber would leave you with the highest chance of having a minor one. Probably. If you want to ask a 19th century duelist to confirm this, here's a Ouija board. Have fun. But if you still want to use a two-handed sword because it offers more control and power, more power to you. And if you want to use a rapier because you think that you can prick the enemy at a distance, go get him, Tiger. I'm not liable for any damages anyways. But since we established that sabers would be our ideal duel weapon, now what? Well, to find out where we go from there, we have to look at the Code Duello. They say there's duality in a man, one side an angel, and the other side a lawyer. And in times like these, the lawyer side would really help out. First up on the priority list for survival is the weapon of choice. While the Irish and French codes have different rules on who gets to choose the weapons, people generally follow the rule that the challenge gets to choose it because it was more honorable. So as long as you aren't the challenger, you can choose the weapon. But good bloodshed is wasted without company. So second on the priority list is for both parties to bring a friend as a second. These are basically referees to make sure both sides play fair, because some people, Hamilton, will try to cheat. And there's a good chance that your second will hop into the fight too. So in addition to referees, there must also be witnesses at the time of the fight. So now your duel should look somewhat like this, and you're almost ready to start the match. But there's a couple more rules that we need to go over. And you need to know them, because they will help you not speedrun life. Now here's the very important rules. These are the ones that will minimize fatality when using the saber. I am going to TLDR it for you viewers so you don't die of boredom before the actual death match. But if you want to read the rules, feel free to pause the video right now. But alright, here's the gist. Using the French Code Duello, Rules 78 and 84 modify the sword so that the damage done during the duel will be less fatal. Rule 78 states that if agreed upon, the sabers used could be shorter ones, which are less fatal because of the reduced force they have. Rule 84 removes the tip of the saber, which saves you or the opponent from a fatal thrust. From both the Irish and French code Duel respectively, Rule 5 and part of Rule 84 give duelers the option to have the duel end after first blood. And Rules 33 and 64 from the French code ensure that the fight is broken up when one side wins. Wouldn't want to murder now, right? So here we are again, with the field assembled and the stakes lowered. Instead of fighting to the death, both of you are now just trying to get each other to bleed. I know that still sounds brutal, but as long as you strike the enemy to the point of drawing blood, you win. And if they get a hit and you lose, at least you increase your chances of survival. But of course, you want to be a winner. So go into that hanging guard, parry your sword, step diagonally with the countercut, bind his counter, go in for a thrust at his leg, and that's it. You just won the duel. The crowd goes wild, tossing you up in the air as they cheer you on. Your second smiles, really glad that this went smoothly and he didn't have to avenge your death or anything. Your arch nemesis, Baron Bull, scowls in the corner as he tends to his wound, using an unsponsored bandage brand. Now, you probably want me to show you this magical technique to win the duel, right? Well, I don't have enough production value for that, so good luck finding that out. Well, hey, at least you minimize your chances of dying. If you do want to learn more about the method I was referring to, though, go check out Hope's Method of Smallsword by Rocket City Hema. They're a historical European martial art YouTube channel, and they cover a great technique if you're worse at sword fighting than your opponent. And for those who don't want to get into a duel in the first place, I got the thing for you. Here's the boring plan. In both codes, the duel can be avoided as long as both parties can come to terms in an apology. If you can call a few minutes ago, that's exactly what Abraham Lincoln did with James Shields. As long as you talk it out, both sides apologize and forgive each other, you don't have to duel. And who knows, maybe you can become great friends. But if not, you can always shank him. And that's all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helps you in your next challenge of honor. And remember, the most important rule is to have fun. Here's a list of sources. I'll be sure to add them in the description below. Alright, peace out.